The people of Stratford were crossing their fingers, crossing their toes, just about anything that's crossable, really. Hundreds gathered in Meridian Square this morning to watch the announcement on a giant screen. As decision time drew near, you could hear a pin drop.
To the city of London.
So the Olympics and Paralympics are coming back to London. And in the press, they say the 2012 Games will create thousands of jobs and bring billions of pounds of new life to the area. But round where I live, next to the Olympic Park, a lot of people have still got questions. Will the benefits make it worth living on a building site for the next 10 years? Will any of us have to move out? Will the opportunities, training and jobs be for us? And will we have any say in how things change? It's great that we've got the Games, but what most of us want to know is, will things really have changed after they've gone?
London, London, London.
The whole of London celebrated when we won the Games, but Mayor Ken Livingstone had his own reasons for bringing them back to London.
Well, the reason I decided to bid for the Olympics, and you couldn't do it without the backing of the mayor, it's one of the primary rules, was only on the grounds it was going to be in the East End of London.
London might be one of the world's wealthiest cities, but it's got its poor parts, and where Coyers and I live is one of them. Coyers is a youth worker for Streets of Growth, and he knows how hard it is for young people round here to find decent jobs.
I wouldn't say not everyone goes and gets a fantastic job, but we have a large number of unemployment, and also a lot of young people not going into training or colleges, dropping out of school early and stuff. So I wouldn't say, we don't, it's not that great. Yeah, I think you should fill my car as well.
Huh?
I think you should fill my car.
Which is your car?
The black one.
The problem for most people round here is not that they can't get a job. It's more that the jobs they can get aren't that well paid. This is H. Foreman and Sons, the UK's oldest salmon smokers, and one of a few hundred factories providing jobs around the area. The salmon from here goes to most of London's five-star hotels, top restaurants and shops like Harrods. Like many of the 500 or so factories in the area, Foreman's provides an important service for the wealthier parts of London to the west.
These businesses are businesses that service central London. Now, we're only 15 minutes away from the city, maybe half an hour away from the West End. And yes, it's not a particularly pretty area, but it's industry. And, every city needs its backyard, effectively. Even Buckingham Palace has somewhere where it puts its bins. Essentially, this is a critical part of the servicing of London.
Cheap land and quick access to London's market has attracted a lot of small businesses to the area. But these companies don't even begin to compare in scale to the factories that were here when my great-great-grandparents first arrived at the turn of the last century. In the 1850s, the Royal Docks opened on the Thames, less than half a mile south of today's Olympic Park. With access to a skilled workforce, links to the railway and vast areas of flat land, the area around the docks quickly became a world centre for the engineering, chemical, textile and food industries. Lotus, Tate & Lyle and Enfield Rifles were amongst the thousands of businesses that were founded and thrived here. By the 1900s, tens of thousands of people had come to live in the area, including thousands of immigrants from Europe and Britain's colonies. For a while at least, East London was the most important manufacturing centre in the world. Today, only a few remnants of the manufacturing glory days survive. After World War I, things began to change. First, there was a global depression, and with more and more machines being used, thousands ended up losing their jobs. Gradually, the global economy changed, and East London found it couldn't compete with cheaper labour overseas. Between 1950 and 1975, more than 40,000 jobs were lost as companies relocated their factories elsewhere. By the time London's docks finally closed in the early 1980s, tens of thousands of people had already left the area. Today, parts of the old docks are pretty well unrecognisable. To stop the area's decline, the government set up a regeneration scheme that became known as London's Docklands. Since it was set up, over £10 billion of private investment has been poured into the area, helping to create 25,000 new homes, a new city airport, and the huge office blocks around Canary Wharf, the UK's tallest building. They also used the money to link East London to the city with a new driverless train system, the Docklands Light Railway. But like the Olympics, not everyone thinks that Docklands is a good thing, because nearly all the highly paid jobs it created went to people from elsewhere. And the people who live round here weren't involved in making any of the decisions.
Canary Wharf, in many instances, obviously, has rewritten the face and the history and future of London. So it is a very significant contributor to the UK economy. But in terms of social engagement and the sense of local participation in that process, it's really an example of what we don't ever want to repeat. So in an area where currently in 2007 you have the highest level of unemployment and an average salary of £100,000 in Tower Hamlets and the area immediately surrounding Canary Wharf, that does highlight issues that we need to address.
The Docklands redevelopment created 100,000 new jobs. But most of the jobs on offer for people where Coyers and I live are as cleaners or security guards. And Coyers and the other Streets of Growth workers say that's because young people don't have the access to training or education they need to get the well-paid jobs.
That's my mum, look.
Youth development opportunities have been quite poor. There's never really been a lot of resourcing in youth development between the sort of 70s and 80s. Just drop-in youth club. By that I mean table tennis, snooker. And no one really going out into the estates, following young people up and journeying with their lives, you know, sort of linking their street life to their school life, to their economic life. And if they dropped out, no one really tracked them to follow them up and to link it into the bigger areas that we all know about today with the sort of knife problems, etc., gang problems that's going on.
The average salary for people who live in Newham is just over £20,000 a year, and that makes Newham the second poorest borough in London. But that's not the only thing that marked us out as an area needing regeneration.
Demographically, one of the buzz points of Newham is the fact that we are technically the youngest and most diverse community in the UK. That, of course, is one of the underlying themes of the bid. So one of the reasons why the game should come to London, and particularly to East London, was that factor of youth diversity and energy.
41% of people in Newham are under 24. We've also got the highest proportion of one-parent families, and that means lots of people can't work because they're looking after children. Like most of East London, there's also a lack of affordable housing, and 1 in 4 houses are officially overcrowded.
A particular requirement for us at the moment is accommodation for large families, which is in particular demand, and there are long waiting lists for that accommodation. So that's one of the social issues that we want to address through the arrival of the games and the other regeneration projects.
Newham's industrial past also means it's got lots of environmental problems. When the docks closed, so did most of the factories, leaving vast areas of redundant brownfield land, much of it contaminated with heavy metals, oil and other toxic substances. The rivers and canals were also used as illegal dumping grounds. Toxic waste and rubbish made it ugly and dangerous, so people hardly ever went there at all. For the 2012 committee, winning the bid meant convincing people that this part of London would benefit more from the games than its competitors. And that meant promising to clean up polluted sites, revitalise large areas of brownfield land to create the Olympic Park and create a legacy that would benefit the community long after the Games have gone. As the massive Olympic build gets underway, things round here are changing really fast. But even before the bid, for the first time in 50 years, the area was attracting new investors and jobs were being created. A massive new shopping centre and office development had already been planned, called Stratford City. Winning the bid has really added to the changes already taking place. Work's already well underway on the Olympic and Paralympic Stadium. And when it's complete, it'll mean turning 500 acres to the west of Stratford into the new Olympic Park. As well as the 80,000-seater stadium, the park's facilities include a world-class aquatic centre with 3 different pools, a massive velodrome and a BMX park. Creating these might sound like a great idea, but not everyone's pleased. This is the Foreman & Son salmon smoking plant. It was built in 2002 with the help of a grant from the London Development Agency. But less than 5 years on, it's one of 250 businesses being demolished to make way for the new Olympic Park.
The argument that the government put was that they were going to, the Olympics was going to regenerate this area. But the point is, the area was already regenerating. The reason that we got grant assistance to move here in the first place was a form of regeneration. And, the area was thriving. This is the largest concentration of manufacturing industry in the whole of London. And it's being wiped out for the sake of 3 weeks of sport. So what you see here is the Olympic Stadium, and this little patch in yellow is where we are currently. So our new factory is very close to our existing one. It's literally just on the edge of the Olympic Park. So that's the western boundary, and then you have a canal, which is part of the River Lee, and we're on the western boundary there, and it's about a 2 to 3 minute walk from the stadium.
Each company being forced to move is given financial help to relocate. But as land prices in the area have gone up since the Olympics was announced, not everyone's been able to find or build their new factories in the area. And some say that's having a negative effect on Newham's economy.
If they can't afford to stay in the area, they've got 2 choices. Either 1, do they just close down because they can't afford to relocate? Or 2, do they move much further out where the land is cheaper? And that's what most of them have been forced to do.
To reduce the impact, the authorities also reduced the size of the park. But not everyone's sorry to see some of the businesses move elsewhere.
Some of the bad neighbour industries we wouldn't be particularly upset to see reallocated. Some other industries we were anxious to keep. Overall, the net increase of jobs is immense. So it's unfortunate for some of our communities and some of our industries. Hopefully, most of them feel that they have been appropriately compensated.
But creating the Olympic Park doesn't just mean making new sports facilities. To get people to and from the Games, the organisers are planning to make full use of the new International Eurostar station, and they're upgrading the existing train network. By linking Stratford to the rest of London and Europe, they hope to attract private investment, bringing long-term economic benefits.
In the short term, we're causing a lot of business disturbance and reshuffling people and encouraging them to relocate. But in the medium term, the big yellow block over here and this bit here is the broadcast and media centre for the Games. Massive building, 1 million square feet. So we're sat in Canary Wharf at the moment, and the fantastic big tower in the middle of Canary Wharf is 1 million square feet. So that building's the equivalent of Canary Wharf on its side. So a lot of space. During the Games, there's going to be 20,000 media working in there. A lot of technology in terms of IT cameras, high definition television. So lots of pipes and connectivity. It's going to be a very well-connected building from an IT point of view, and therefore the opportunity to keep that building and in legacy create something very special out of it. That'll be a fantastic office location right at the hub of all this public transport, particularly with Paris and Brussels, less than 2 hours away on the train. So we're working with our private development partners to build about 5 million square feet of offices.
In addition to the private investment, after the Games, the media centre will be converted to provide another 1 million square feet of high-tech offices, the same amounts of space as is in Canary Wharf. In total, it's hoped that after the Games, 50,000 new jobs will be created in the park. But for young people where I live, the big question is whether they'll have the skills and support to help them take advantage of the new opportunities, or whether, like generations before them, they'll end up with the low-paid work. You don't need to walk around any part of Newham for long to see that most people here are pretty poor. The average salary is about 1/5 of what people earn in Kensington and Chelsea, and being poor also creates other problems.
For every stop on the Jubilee line from Westminster to Newham, adult male will lose a year of his life. 7 stops, 7 years. But those are the differences being built over centuries that we now have a unique opportunity to do something about.
As a youth worker on the Devons estate, Coyers knows all too well that young people round here have worse health, poorer housing and fewer qualifications than almost anywhere else in London. But one of the reasons for bidding for the Olympics was to create a better life for people in East London beyond 2012 and into the next 20 years.
And I wanted both a proper second chance programme for the kids who've been failed by their schools so they can get the jobs that are coming, but also to specifically prepare the people with the skills we need for building the games. There's all the construction work on the Olympic site, followed by the £16 billion Crossrail project, followed by running along with the upgrade of the underground, the opening up of all these brownfield sites out through Barking and so on. And we massively expanded construction courses, particularly in East End colleges, so that we're producing people here who can access 20 years of good, high-paid, well-qualified work, rather than simply have to, end up putting up lots of porter cabins for large numbers of Poles to live in on a temporary basis.
As part of the drive to improve skills and training for young people, a new construction college has been built close to the Olympic sites.
There has been a massive emphasis, to develop this college in a relatively short space of time. So, and the work with the ODA, with the college, has been fantastic.
If I can get a job after getting my licence on Olympic site, that would be fantastic.
More qualification, more training, the more you get, the better it'll be.
20 people from Coyers' estate also took part in an 8-month training programme put together by Streets of Growth. Called Transition into Construction, the idea was to provide them with skills for the construction industry. But the question some people are now asking is, will there be jobs for them all?
What they're finding now is they're going out onto sites, they're writing letters, and they're just hitting blank walls. So a group of young men who have been engaged for 8 months are now becoming disillusioned because they're thinking, again, it's all training, no economic benefit.
No matter who builds the facilities, one thing that does seem sure is that the athletes at the Games are going to be well looked after. To house the 17,000 of them taking part, the Olympic Delivery Authority are building a massive new housing complex in the centre of the park. It's an idea that was used at the Millennium Games in Sydney.
Sydney did it brilliantly in terms of an Olympic park, and some of our inspiration has come from Sydney in terms of the park and having the venues, particularly the village very close to the sports venues, and trying to create quite a compact games and doing it in a parkland setting.
But building the Olympic Village means demolishing a housing estate, a travellers' site and student halls of residence around Clays Lane. And some residents weren't happy about being forced to leave.
It was extremely insensitively handled. The presentations that were done by the London Development Agency had brought along the artists' impressions of what the site was going to look like afterwards. It was a standard corporate presentation. There was no attempt and no real understanding of the reaction, because the first meeting that they addressed degenerated virtually into a riot, because there was no allowance made for the feelings of the residents at all.
The estate being demolished was home to 450 people and was a unique cooperative housing project, providing low-cost social housing.
I've been living on Clays Lane for 6 years now. Some are like flats on their own. 4 people can live in one house, 6 people can live in another, and 10 people can live in another. So it just depends on the type of people that you live with, you know, that you can kind of like get on with them. And I've been quite fortunate, because the people that have lived in my house, I've got on with everybody. We've kind of got on really well.
It's been quite a big challenge in terms of convincing everyone to relocate, to support the project, finding them new homes off the side, and just generally trying to help them to relocate, but also going through quite a tough and onerous legal process to really force them to relocate to our timescales.
As part of what was called a decant project, the Housing Trust helps residents find new social housing. But with so many poor people in the borough, affordable housing is difficult to find.
And there's a huge amount of housing demand as well, particularly for social housing in all of East London and all of London. And as a result, it's very difficult for people wanting to get social housing in this area to either get onto a waiting list or to be picked up by a local authority. It's very, very difficult.
As well as getting help with finding new social housing, each resident also received £8,500 compensation. But the Clays Lane Co-op provided exceptionally low-cost accommodation, as well as free furniture and household appliances. And some people didn't think £8,500 was enough.
At the moment, even though we pay rent, all our bills, like the gas and everything else, the electric, that's all included, the water rates. But obviously, once you move out, you're going to have to pay like council tax if you're working, and then rent, and then gas and electric and things like that. So that money will help towards like getting furniture and also with like household bills.
My flat, which is a 1-bedroom flat with about 45 square metres of space, costs me around £70 a week. What I'm looking forward to is probably a doubling of my cost of housing.
Despite the challenges, all the Clays Lane residents were rehoused by July 2007. And as a result of an agreement with the social landlords providing new homes, at least some of the houses in the Olympic Village will now be used to provide affordable homes after the Games.
Part of the reason why people are so keen to give us housing is that for every sort of 1-bedroom property that's provided for a Clays Lane resident, in the legacy housing at the end of the Olympics, they'll get a double payback, so either a 2-bed property or 2 1-beds or something like that.
The land, almost all of it, is controlled by the Mayor through the London Development Agency. All the government's funding of the Games is based on 50% of that land being for affordable housing. The money's all there to do that, and the government's locked in and committed to it. What we don't want now is some mad sort of adventure like say, oh, well, we'll scrap all that and we'll just sell it all off to the private sector at the highest possible rate of return, because you could get a lot more selling it without the affordable housing.
Since we won the bid, the cost of housing has been going up and up, making it harder for low-income families and young people to find places to live. If we don't get more affordable homes after the Games, the people they promised to help will be worse off than they were before.
There's no question about people being able to return here. The type of housing that's being offered is, I mean, they talk about affordable housing, but no, I don't think anybody's actually defined affordable housing. I guess if you've got a Porsche and you know, your existing pad is a penthouse in Docklands, then, and you want a pied-à-terre so that you can get to the Olympics easily, then this is what these things will come under the heading of.
And as more and more developers move into the area, building luxury flats, some people are worried that the same thing will happen here as it did at the Sydney Games. There, all the promised social housing ended up being sold off to pay for the Games. From the air, the Olympic Park looks like one big brownfield site. But if you know where to go, it's not hard to find open spaces around Newham that are real gems, like the Greenway, a riverside walk that crisscrosses the site of the Olympics and is part of the Lee Valley Regional Park.
The idea behind the Lee Valley Regional Park first came up in 1944 when Patrick Abercrombie put it into this London plan for this area, and his view was that you could create a green lung along the valley. It could be a playground for Londoners. And then about 20 years later, finally the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority was established, and its remit is to generate and create that green lung, which is what the Park Authority has been doing for the last 40 years or so.
The park authorities are making some of the parts of the riverbank better, but lots of bits are still polluted and used as dumping grounds. Before the Thames Barrage was built, the area used to get flooded a lot, and when it did, the floodwaters also brought sewage with them. Most people think the Games will only make things better. The big plan has always been that London's Games should be the most sustainable ever. If the authorities keep to the plans, after the Games, Newham and the other boroughs bordering the park will have a legacy of much more public space, better sports facilities, and use of a park that stretches from Hertfordshire right down to the Thames.
I mean, the idea of the Olympics really complements what the Park Authority has been trying to achieve in the Lee Valley over the last 40 years. But of course, it's provided this massive boost in terms of funding. The opportunity has been increased enormously as a result of the Olympics coming along. And what we have is really the opportunity to develop a whole new range of sports facilities, which is entirely consistent with the Park Authority's remit. And what the Olympics is also doing is putting the Lee Valley on the map. And the other component is really that extension of the park to the Thames.
As part of the development, the authorities are also planning to build a new lock at 3 Mills, the southerly tip of the main Olympic Park, to help create a permanent waterway all the way down to the Thames. But it's not just the area around the river that's going to change. One of the first things most people notice when they come here are the numbers of electricity pylons. In most areas, the cables are buried underground, but around Newham, they chose the cheaper option. To make it look better, all over the Olympic site, the old pylons are being dismantled and the cabling buried in vast tunnels underground, all at great expense. The flat land that attracted many of our old industries is also going to change, re-landscaped to make way for a natural-looking park. And for some people, being sustainable doesn't just mean creating a better environment. It's also about limiting the impact of the Games themselves.
Well, I mean, you can't hold an Olympics and fly people all across the globe without it having not a very good carbon footprint. But we're trying to do our best in terms of, given that we're having to deliver that project, to look at how we can relocate things. We talked about venues, how we can recycle materials. So after the games, making sure that things are biodegradable, that we can reuse, that we design things in a way that we can find new homes for. And also our whole transport and construction strategy.
Some of Newham's green spaces are being destroyed to make way for the new facilities. But to reduce the impact of the development, wildlife is being moved to nearby sites before work begins. In some ways, the Olympics is making people think about their environment. Before they were moved, most people didn't even know the newts were there. People in Newham don't have much of a reputation for caring for the environment. But in a bid to change things, the organisers are asking them for help to make 2012 the greenest ever games. The borough's industrial past means a lot of the sites are polluted with everything from heavy metals to radiation and unexploded bombs. Some of the soil in the area contains massive levels of cyanide and mercury. In the past, this soil would have just been taken away and dumped, moving the problem elsewhere. But instead, it's being cleaned and brought back onto the site. But that's not the only way the organisers are trying to limit the game's impact on our environment.
Got an ambitious programme to reuse and recycle a lot of the material on the site. So we're already on site demolishing a lot of buildings and clearing up a lot of land in the north part of the site. And we're reclaiming, our target we set ourselves to reuse 90% material on site. And we're achieving about 95% at the moment.
To meet the targets, bricks and concrete from old buildings are being crushed and used to infill the site. Other materials are separated out and taken away to be recycled. And Newham's people are also being asked to reduce, reuse and recycle.
We're working with the Games organisers at the moment on a pilot project around the XL Exhibition Centre, which is one of the Olympic venues, to try and reduce, as a prototype, the amount of food packaging litter from the streets around XL and from XL itself.
There's still quite a lot of rubbish around, but things are beginning to change. The Olympics is making people think more about their environment, and that should mean they'll not only make it better now, but for years to come. Work's already well underway in the new Olympic Park. But even if you live here, it's hard to imagine just how much the Olympics are going to change East London.
Looking back from 2020, unless the mayors of the future screw it up, what you should have is a really good sports stadium that's very good for the local communities and helps to train a new generation of elite athletes. You'll have the aquatic centre, which has got the training for elite athletes, but also well used by local schools. Hockey pitches, and this is an area where we've got communities which have a long tradition of hockey in their countries of origin, as well as this wonderful new linear park so people can walk from the Thames all the way up to the boundary of Greater London. And 40,000 new homes, 50,000 new jobs, effectively. I mean, a city within a city, with the whole footprint of London being dragged eastwards.
But with so much development and change going on, some people around here aren't sure if big projects like the Olympics have their interests at heart.
I've just not seen innovative ways of engaging the community. It's the same old thing. Get some boards done, turn up for an event. There doesn't seem to be real engaging at grassroots level to help communities understand where they've been, where they've come from, where are they trying to go. It's just very much, out with the old, in with the new.
Where I live, lots of people think it will be worth it, as long as there's a sustainable legacy that lasts well beyond 2012. And the changes involve local people deciding their own futures. Some things are already beginning to change, and one of them is the football pitch in the Devons estate. With the help of £50,000 from the Olympic Fund, in 2007 a redevelopment programme for the pitch began. And what made it special was the way in which everyone was involved in deciding what to do.
You know, in the past, consultation programs were just, sending leaflets to people's houses with questionnaires, get them to tick boxes. And then at the end, there's going to be a box saying, other comments. Whereas our one, the one we done with the football pitch project, it was special because we were running, workshops where we got, a lot of people from the community to come in and, talk, sit down, talk about what they want for everyone else.
With help from Coyers, Hafizah and their colleagues from the Streets of Growth, everyone got a chance to have a say about how the pitch should change. They even made a film about it.
This is our pitch. The architects have designed it, the planners are planning it, and I can't wait for it to be built. We had a debate about what good and bad design is. We spoke about the problems with the pitch and how the space could be used. Good design isn't just about what looks good, it's about the best way to solve problems. We know the problems better than anybody else because we live here.
One of the first things we did with the project was to get people to think about, everyone around them, we kind of got them to, talk about what was important to them, what's going to be important, for other people, and just got them to think more creatively and think more about everyone else, not just about making another football pitch. Firstly, one of the ideas the young guys had was about building an area here for, little young kids to play in, like a little, what's the word?
Like play area, like swings,
swings and things like that.
Monkey bars, stuff like that.
And as well as there's going to be a running track all the way around the pitch. So, you can do things like warm up and just, have a race or something. So,
yeah, I think what our plan was going to have another entrance there. I feel like we was talking about before. Actually, it's not really welcoming if it's going to be fenced out there. So the plan was we're going to have a walk pathway, so walkway for people just get into the football pitch. There was plans, obviously, there's going to be some plants and stuff over there. So we looked at having plants and stuff like that, which were, yes, we're going to have over there plants with benches as well. It's another sitting area, also a place where you can, like we said, just grab a sandwich or something.
So that's a thing that the kids talked about a lot, was about lighting. And not just that, lighting also provides safety. It makes, when the area is more well lit, you can see what's happening in that area.
1 year on, work's already begun on the pitch. But like the Olympic Park, we won't know if it's any good until after it's been built. But because everyone's involved, we all want to make it work. And like the pitch, the legacy of 2012 will only be a lasting success if the people round here get to have a say in what happens and the opportunities they need to build a community that carries on long after the games have gone.
For me, the future is this community. I just want to stay here, help the young people and the old, and make a difference, make a legacy of my own. Yeah.